I hope you've had a great summer, and I hope you get a chance this morning to reflect on how your summer was. How were the last 3 months? How were the last 3 months? Okay? This is a chance for you this morning to think about maybe your highs and lows. Some of your highs for the summer and some of your lows. And what we're going to be looking at this morning is maybe what was happening during some of those lows, during a low. What happens during a low? And oftentimes, the natural man, what the writings call the natural man, creeps up into our life. Everyone has one. A natural man is that part of us that says, have you ever heard this from a little kid? No. I know, no one's heard that. No. And that's that little natural man. That's the part of us that won't be tamed. So we're going to talk about taming the natural man, and we're going to do it through a story in the Word of Esau and Jacob. Now, these two brothers are twins. They were born at the same time, but who was born first? Esau. Esau was born first, so he has the birthright. He will be the leader of the tribe. And what happened to them is a story about the natural man, about how it affects our life. Let's read it. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man, dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with that same red stew, for I am very weary." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I am about to die, so what is this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And we read further from Genesis chapter 27. Now it came to pass, when Isaac was old and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son and said to him, "My son." And he answered him, "Here I am." Then he said, "Behold, now I am old, I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. And make me savory food, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt game and to bring it. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, "Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, 'Bring me game and make savory food for me, that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death." And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself, and not a blessing." But his mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice, and go, get them for me." And he went and got them, and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am." "Who are you, my son?" Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. And I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit, eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because the Lord your God brought it to me." Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near me, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not." So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy, like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. Amen. The children would like to come forward for the children's talk. Now's the time. Okay. Well, I guess I might as well tell you something you probably didn't know. I am the strongest man in the world. No? No? I'm not? You're right, I'm not. You know what that's called? A lie. That's a lie, okay? I'm not the strongest man in the world. Well, how about this? Can you have a little necklace on? Can I see it? It's such a pretty necklace. Can I hold it? Can you take it off? What do you think about that? What's that called? Stealing. That's exactly right. Okay, thank you. That's stealing. If I were to take your necklace, that's stealing. And then something else I have a question about. What if I said, I know my parents raised me, but you know what? I'm just not going to listen to them anymore. What's that? Not what? Not obeying your mom and dad. Not honoring your mom and dad. Not honoring your parents. Now, I just told you 3 kind of really nasty things, didn't I? And it didn't feel good, did it? Those 3 things are what Jacob did to Esau and his mom. He lied. He said that he was Esau and he was really Jacob. He stole his brother's blessing, and he lied, he dishonored his father. He deceived him, meaning he said, I am Esau, when he was really Jacob. So Jacob did 3 very naughty things. He broke 3 commandments. And what happened to him? What we'll learn later is that Esau was very angry at Jacob, and so angry that he was going to kill Jacob. And so Jacob had to move to another country. And that's kind of what happens to us when we lie, or deceive people, or steal things. We kind of move to another country. We kind of change who we are. It changes what we're like. It changes our life. And so when we lie, steal, and deceive, it changes us, and we go to places we don't want to be. mainly called the natural man. So, if we were to go to heaven, if we were to change who we are, we would not what? What's one thing we wouldn't do?
Steal.
What's another thing?
Lie.
And a third? Don't hit. Yeah, don't hurt. Definitely don't do that. But don't disobey your parents. That way, if we continue to keep our mind on the commandments, keep our eye on them, and obey them, it changes who we are and we become angels. Please bow your heads. Blessing the church. May the Lord give his angels charge over you and keep you in all ways. Amen. Now we read further from the sacred scripture. Regarding pleasures, is it okay to have a good time? Is it okay to have pleasures in our life? Sacred Scripture number 4. Therefore, in order to remove all doubt as to such being the character of the Word, the Lord has revealed to me the Word's internal sense. In its essence, this is spiritual. And in relation to the external sense, which is natural, it is as soul is to body. This sense is the spirit which gives life to the letter. It can therefore bear witness to the divinity and holiness of the Word, and convince even the natural man, if he is willing to be convinced. True Christian Religion, number 68. No one but God can resist evils and their falsities. For all evils and their falsities are from hell, and in hell they cohere as a unit, the same as all goods and truths do in heaven. For as has been said above, before God all heaven is like a single man. And on the other hand, all hell is a single gigantic monster. Consequently, to act against a single evil and its falsity is to act against that gigantic monster or hell. And this no one is able to do except God, because he is omnipotent. From this, it is clear that unless man approaches the omnipotent God, he has from himself no more power against evil and its falsity than a fish has against the ocean, than a flea against a whale, or than a grain of dust against a falling mountain, and much less than a locust has an elephant, or a fly against a camel. Moreover, man has all the less power against evil and its falsity because he is born into evil, and evil cannot act against itself. From all this, it follows that unless man lives in accordance with order, that is, unless he acknowledges God and his omnipotence, and the resulting protection against hell, and also on his part, fights with evil in himself, for order requires both of these, he cannot but be immersed and overwhelmed in hell, and there be driven about by evils, one after another, as a skiff at sea is driven by the storms. Here are the lessons. May the Lord add his blessing to the reading and hearing of his word. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Please be seated. Well, like some of you, I have just been on vacation. And was anybody else on vacation? Anybody? A little bit of vacation, mini vacations, okay. And like all vacations, what happens on vacation? Stays on vacation, right? What happens? Well, we played cards. I can tell you, we had all kinds of beverages. We had lots of fun. We danced. We went to shows. I mean, we entertained ourselves, and we were entertained. Now, some people would have you believe that we should start putting on our fireproof clothing because we are surely going to hell for the fun that we have. That we're not allowed to enjoy the earth's pleasures and enjoyments. That's what some people teach. But that is misguided, misdirected. If people really knew the truth, like we learn in the heavenly doctrines, that the Lord wants us to enjoy everything in the world. Dinners, plays, movies, beautiful parks. Why? Why are all these things given to us? Because, one word, useful. Because they are useful. They rejuvenate the mind, they rejuvenate our souls, they give us rest, and they are useful. And when it goes, and you know when this happens, most of you know when this happens, when something goes from being useful to not being useful, right? It happens every Thanksgiving Day. Useful, not useful. And all pleasures are like that. They're useful, and it's a good thing. Pleasures in marriage, pleasures in relationships, and then it can cross over that line. So that's what we're talking about today, how that happens. We read from the True Christian Religion, some think that no one ought ever to live in the pleasures of the body and its senses who wishes to be happy in the other life. But that all these should be renounced on the ground that they are corporeal and worldly, withdrawing man and keeping him away from spiritual and heavenly life. But those who think so and therefore reduce themselves to voluntary misery while they live in the world are not well informed as to what is the real case. And there was a man who sat on a column of stone for 30 years. Ascetics. They take on a life of nothing, of poverty. They accept a life of poverty. He sat on that stone for 30 years, and he was revered for that. I mean, he didn't get down when he was sick. They had to hand stuff up to him and feed him. There was more than one of these kinds of people. You got to Google that. A life of poverty. Is that what we're supposed to do? The real truth is that no one is forbidden the pleasures of this world. And the Lord wants us to own land, to enjoy our marriages, to love our children, to listen to great music, to enjoy food and drink, and even Swedenborg himself, while visiting in the spiritual world. Here's what he says when he's back and forth, spiritual world and earth. When he was visiting in that spiritual world, he said, I was never denied any of the delights of life, and I was permitted to enjoy not only the pleasures of the body and the senses like those who live in the world, but in 1748 he wrote this: I have been permitted to enjoy such delights and felicities of life as I believe no persons in the whole world ever before have enjoyed, which were greater and more exquisite than any person could imagine and believe. Spiritual diary. Oh, we have something to look forward to. Something fantastic. Heaven is loaded with enjoyments and pleasures and sensual pleasures, spiritual pleasures, when your mind feels at peace. I mean, there's a pleasure in that. So that's what heaven and the presence of angels brings, that peace. There's a pleasure, a real enjoyment in that if you've had that in your own life. So we each truly have something to look forward to, and the Lord is delighted. He wants to give us those pleasures. But he also says, there is something in your life right now, all of us have it, that will interfere with that process, with you getting those pleasures. Something in your life right now that we all have from birth that's going to change whether you receive those pleasures or not. And that thing, we're going to call it today, the natural man. That's the natural man. That's the thing that's going to block, that can block you, your growth, your process to becoming an angel. So what is this natural man? It's not our material body. We're not talking about that. This is the part of us that allows our desires and appetites to rule us. It's that. It's here, use, boom. That's the natural man when he steps in. It's the innate desire of the natural man to cast aside every law of order. Like whether the government laws or spiritual laws, doesn't matter. Nothing can subdue this thing. It thinks. It wants to rule everything. It has no master. Now, none of us are a stranger to this beast. I'm sure you can recognize this in yourself. It has tantrums. You might have seen your spouse have a tantrum. They can have a mini tantrum. They can go in the bedroom and have a tantrum. You can go in and have a tantrum. It not only has tantrums, but it seeks the forbidden. It wants to do the wrong thing. It wants to do what feels good. It might like to see others suffer. Sometimes it seeks to gain while others lose. And it's that part of us that grabs life and everything in it. Might be okay, but that takes a little bit more. Starting to get it? The natural man is that one, he's called excess. You can call him excess. There's a bunch of different names we can call him. And so what are we to do? How are we to manage this? And what we discover is that to rule over and to control the natural man, to make it obedient to the spiritual man, to the good part of us, is everybody's mission on earth. Everyone. No matter what religion, doesn't matter what country you live in, I don't care what language you speak. Everyone's job here is to rule over that part of us that goes too far. To make that part obedient to the spiritual. You see, when you enter into the spiritual world, and on this world too, when you enter into the spiritual world, how do you want to do it? Imagine yourself, okay, we all go home, we die in a car accident on the way home, and we go into the spiritual world. Are we going to go in like this? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Are we in trouble? Oh, I knew it. And I'm even in the new church. Okay? Are we going to go in like, and you're going to go in as a slave? Never able to conquer the appetites? Because once a slave in the other world, always a slave. And the work has to be done here. Or you're going to go into the spiritual world like this. A conqueror. Someone who was able to conquer their appetites. You walk in and say, I'm here, let's go. I'm ready. Whatever it is. I got nothing to hide. I've worked hard. I have problems, but I can work on them. I need you to help me, Lord. Work on them. That's walking into heaven as a conqueror, into the spiritual world. So in his mercy, the Lord sees, he foresaw that this would be a problem for us, the natural man. He knows us so well. And it shows in the Word, in the stories. And he knows that we aren't going to actually be able to make it without him. We don't know it, but he knows it. That if we don't get him, as we read, that all hell is like a giant monster acting on us together. And there's no way we can beat that monster without asking the Lord to help us. Because he's the only one powerful enough. The way he gives us a solution is right here in the Word. In the internal sense of this Word, he teaches us about ourselves. We get to learn what we're really like, and that way, through that truth, we get to conquer the natural man. I said truth. We learn the truth in here. It turns out there's only one thing that will change the natural man's heart. Only one thing. It's called the truth. It's the only thing it'll listen to. When you were born, since you were little, you've been loving the truth. Did you know that? You have been loving, you've been wanting to read books, you want to look at things, you always want to pick stuff up, put it in your mouth. Then after that, you wanted to study. If you found an area you were interested in, this is a gift from the Lord. He's given all of us this search for truth. And we look for that truth in everything we read, everything we do. We love it. And that's really the only thing that's going to change that selfish part of ourselves. So, when we learn the truth, it leads to good. And what is a good? Has anybody met a good person? What's a good person? What do they do? You know, it just seems like such a nice person. But what is a nice person? Well, they're nice to me. But what really constitutes a nice person? Someone who's a good person. What is that? Let's look at a definition of a good person. The writings tell us it's somebody who loves the Lord and loves the neighbor. I know you've heard that. Love the Lord, love the neighbor. And the opposite of that is love self and love the world. And we're all somewhere in here, right? Love the Lord, love the neighbor, love self, love the world. And some days we're here and here. But the more we get up here, the more we're becoming a good person. But that's still kind of nebulous. So let's give it even more. Let's let the writings spell it out for us a little more. A good person is someone who, when I say loves the Lord, that means he follows the commandments, the 10 Commandments, with delight. I love doing these commandments. I love obeying the Lord. And he loves the neighbor by performing uses to the neighbor. Here comes that word again, use. We don't just love the neighbor. Oh, I love everyone. No. Who we are useful to, what use we perform in the world, our jobs, the connections we have with other people. It's in action. That's what loving the neighbor is. And the neighbor is simply other people in your life who you run into. It could be anybody. It doesn't mean it's your mom. It's anybody. Who you help, who you're useful to. And that way, by following the commandments and loving the neighbor, you're beginning to crumble this natural man. Just by living a good life, this natural man is starting to have chinks in the armor. Now, I really want you to get to know the natural man a little bit. I'll give you an example. Alexander the Great. This is a great guy to study. If you look at some of the history of Alexander the Great, he had great authority. This guy was a powerhouse. He was born into royalty. And despite all his power, he was a heavy drinker. He had tantrums in front of his soldiers. I'm talking about tantrums. And he carried a massive ego. And one time, I'll just give you one example. He was at a party, okay, in his honor. And he had just, one of his generals had been killed, and so a new general had come up from the ranks. And that general inadvertently insulted him at the party. And Alexander the Great had him executed right there on the spot. Massive ego, okay? This is all natural man stuff. His men, even his generals, were required to march 30 miles a day with 30 days worth of flour on their back. I mean, there was no compassion. That wasn't a word in his vocabulary. And so, because of that natural man, there was untold suffering all throughout Asia, all throughout the countries he conquered. The natural man there's no limit to what it wants to do. It can wreak havoc on any relationship. And think about your relationship. If you want to think about this summer, think about the highs and the lows. Think about that low time. It what was going on with your natural man? When things weren't going well, was it wreaking havoc on your relationships because he was raising his ugly head? Was it changing how you treated your family? That natural man, he's alive and well inside, and he needs to be ruled, to be conquered. The Lord is the only one who can do that. So I don't care how amazing you are, if you've done incredible feats and deeds, and everybody thinks that you're a star, if you have not reduced the natural man to a state of obedience, you have accomplished nothing. We read, "What is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Nowhere in Scripture is there to be found a more vivid portrayal of the natural man than in the story of Jacob. He was a man of the world, and he essentially was concerned with self. And the Lord uses this story of Esau and Jacob to teach us about our natural man. So it begins in childhood. And Esau represents this childhood state. From a very young age, each of us wants to innocently please our parents. And we are in a state of affection. And these young, these little kids are in a little innocent state of affection. They want to obey. They want to do what's right. And they're in a state of good. And this time of being led by good, is called Esau. It's a state of remains. It's by means of these innocent affections of good that we are governed by the Lord throughout our whole infancy and childhood. But as you know, as every parent knows, there comes a time when little people, as they grow, they get restless. And they want to rule over their parents. They have successive states of development where they more and more want to rule themselves. It's a natural inclination, it's the divine design, it's meant to happen, but we get more delight from being run by ourselves than we do being run by our parents. You see that stage go away? Where, I'll do exactly what my mommy says. And from there it heads into, I'm going to do what I want to do. So that we move from Esau, that state of remains, into Jacob, that state of self. The mind finds increasing delight in the things that are pleasing to self, and we gradually recede from the delight we found in just pleasing our parents. Everybody who's had kids has probably grieved when they saw the innocence leaving that little person. Oh, where did you learn that word? Or who told you that? Or how, when they moved from that state of innocence, how could you have done that? One of my kids, no names, I remember we had bought a new car and we had parked the car out by the barn. And we came home and he'd had a friend over and we had said something like, we're parking the car by the barn, we're not going to use it because we have this new car. Well, he took that to mean this car is done. We don't need this car anymore. So all the windows were broken, all the mirrors were broken. Oh, this car, they had destroyed this car. And I realized at that point, this little man has changed. That's something he would never have done. And of course he was sorry, but he had reached a new state. So in our desire to be ruled by self, we move away from being led by good, and we forfeit our birthright. The most ancient church was led by good. They were directly connected to the angels. But when it happened that we moved into wanting to be ruled by ourselves. We move away from good, we forfeit our birthright, and we move to truth. We need to learn truth now to get to good. The succession of Jacob to the birthright symbolizes the process that each of us goes through, where from being led by good, we are now being led by truth, by the laws of the land, by order, by the rules. It's only in this way that we can move back to being led by good. The Lord has provided a way for us to subdue this natural man and create a new will, which is formed in our understanding, and that is by instruction. Instruction in truths. So at some point in our early life, truth begins to have dominion over good, as Jacob steals Esau's birthright. And we begin to do what is right for the sake of honor, reputation, and gain. Not because we delight in it anymore. You're not doing things right because, oh, I want to be good. It's because honor, reputation, and gain. I don't want people to see me as someone who's bad. The sad thing about the natural man is he's not content with just doing things for honor, reputation, and gain. When he does something good, he also says, oh, look what I did. I'm pretty good. And he takes that good as his own, and rather than the Lord's. In other words, all good is from the Lord. And the natural man says, nope, I did that. It's good for me. And so Jacob not only steals the birthright, but he steals the blessing as well. That good. He steals the good. He thinks that good is from himself. And what happens when a man begins to believe that he's good from himself? He moves away from the Lord. Just as Jacob had to leave his homeland and go to his uncle Laban. When we believe that good comes from us, when we believe that we can run our own life, we start to separate from the Lord. We leave Esau. The Lord gives each one of us a secret weapon against this natural man. He endows each of us from birth with a love that differs from all other loves. No animals have this. If you've had horses, you can call a horse, come here, he comes. If you want to tell him what to do, he'll do it. If you have a huge bull, I've done this before, you have a huge bull and you put a yoke on him and you plow the field, tell him to stop, he stops, tell him to go, he goes. He's huge, he's 1,500 pounds. How can I control something 1,500 pounds? I mean, he could just turn around and squish me. Because we can all do that, because we have something that animals don't, a rational mind. We can understand and love truths, and they cannot. We can control things way bigger than us. So if I can control a huge animal like that with my natural rational, imagine what you can control with a spiritual rational. Wow, super powerful. The rational mind that understands truths can stand above your life and look down and go, you know what? I'm really hurting people. I gotta stop that. I love my wife and I did that again. You stand up here, you have a rational. And when you stand up and look above your life, the things that you're doing, and go, what am I doing that is hurting people? Or what am I doing that's different than this book is saying? It's telling me to do this. Okay, let me come over here. Okay, I'm doing this. This is good. And you see how you get to look at your life and you get to say, this is how, as long as I know the truths, right? I've been instructed what they are. Love the Lord, love the neighbor, follow the commandments. I know what they are. As long as we know those truths, we can stand above and look down at our life. And that is the secret weapon against the natural man. Nobody else has it. No animals have it, just humans. We can abstract our thought above the self. And it gives us the ability to see beyond appearances. Sun comes up every morning, right? Nope. No. Earth moves. Lots of appearances. We think they're like that, but they're not. And when we rise above, we can see what those appearances really are. Because we can do that, we can perceive what is good. We can see what is good. We can play things out in our mind and see how they end. Oh, this is going to have a good ending. This is the way I want to go. And that's how truth, we've been instructed. I know what to do. I do it. And it leads to good. And now we're back to our birthright. Living in good. That's what angels do. They live from what is good. At first, we have to force ourselves to do things we don't like. It is a real bummer. We force ourselves, our conscience says, okay, I gotta do this. I gotta run, I gotta work out. I gotta, whatever it is, I gotta call this person. Your conscience tells you to do it, and you do it. At first, it's no fun. And over time, the Lord promises that those things will be delightful. So what I want you to do for a moment is just think about, now that we're in the fall, think about your summer. Take some time to reflect on those highs and lows. And what low, when you had one, what was in control? Any kind of what happened this summer? Can you think of any situation? Give yourself a minute. What was happening during that low? How could it have been different if the Lord was under control? What lows were happening, and how could it have been different? And watch out for it's not my fault. Watch out for that. How could it have been different? I want to give you a couple that I've heard people say when they reviewed what happened, when they reviewed their lows. Here's a couple. Yelling never works. Always ask yourself, here's another person, always ask yourself, is another drink, another helping, another comment, another nasty look useful? Here's another question to ask when you're in a low. Who am I trying to control? Who am I trying to control? Here's another one. Comparing creates resentment. And another person I interviewed, here's what they said. Starting today, I will allow for the possibility that I am wrong. So you get a chance to make up your own list, to reflect because you can look down from your rational mind onto your life and determine what's useful and what's not useful. And use that word useful in your life. Is it useful? That will lead you to good. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit, and eat of my game, that your soul may rest. Amen. Let us pray. Lord, we ask you to help us subdue our natural man. Help us to call on you when we are fighting our habits and tendencies toward the forbidden. For without you,